Wealthy woman Mock Street child, but he claims to share her last name. Catherine Williams felt her blood run cold when the street kid uttered that surname, one only her family had carried for generations in New York City. The boy, who couldn't have been more than 10, stood on the sidewalk outside the city's most luxurious bank. Catherine had just left a meeting with her private banker when she stumbled while trying to avoid him. Her designer purse nearly slipped from her hands, and that's when her irritation exploded. "This is outrageous! Isn't there anyone to get these children off the streets?" she snapped, adjusting her beige cashmere coat. "Where are this boy's parents?" The child stared at her with calm eyes, unfazed by her sharp tone. His clothes were worn, his sun-faded brown t-shirt hanging loosely, but there was something in his posture that intrigued her. "You dropped this," he said, holding out a card that had fallen from her purse. Catherine snatched it from his hands roughly, but the boy continued. "Your name's Williams, right? Mine is too. Ethan Williams." The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Catherine's legs trembled. That surname, and it couldn't be. In all of New York City, only her family carried it, a lineage tracing back to the state's earliest coffee barons. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Ethan Williams, that's my name. My grandma always said this last name was important." Catherine studied the boy more closely. His dark skin, curly hair, delicate features, nothing about him resembled her family. But then he pulled something from under his shirt, an old medal hanging from a frayed cord. The world seemed to stop. Catherine recognized it instantly, the Williams family crest engraved on the tarnished metal. It was identical to the one displayed in the mansion's dining room, identical to the one her brother Richard had worn before he... "Where did you get that?" she demanded, lunging for the medal. Ethan took 2 steps back, shielding it with his small hands. "It's mine. My grandma said it was my dad's." "Your father? Who is your father?" Catherine's heart pounded, but the boy was already running. His bare feet slapped against the hot pavement as he vanished between cars stopped at the traffic light. Catherine stood frozen on the sidewalk, dozens of questions hammering in her mind. Richard. Her brother's name echoed like a ghost. 40 years. 40 years since he'd vanished without a trace, taking one of the family medals with him and leaving behind only pain and unanswered questions. Catherine returned to her armored Cadillac with trembling hands. The driver, Charles, noticed her distress. "Is everything all right, Ms. Catherine?" "Take me home," she ordered, her mind still reeling from the encounter. The entire drive to the Upper East Side, where the family mansion stood, Catherine couldn't stop thinking about the boy. Ethan Williams. How was this possible? Was it some kind of scam? Someone trying to exploit the family name? But the medal? No one outside the family even knew those medals existed. There were only 3, forged by her great-grandfather when the family made their fortune in coffee. One was hers, one was her mother's, and the third had disappeared with Richard. Arriving home, Catherine went straight to her study. She needed to think clearly. At 65, she had learned not to be ruled by emotion. She'd built a real estate empire by being rational and calculating. But this encounter had stirred something deep, something she'd buried decades ago. She picked up the phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Dr. Mitchell, it's Catherine Williams. I need your services. It's urgent." The private investigator had worked for the family before. He was discreet and efficient. Within 2 hours, he was seated across from her in the office. "I need you to find a street kid, around 10 years old, black, goes by the name Ethan Williams. He was begging in front of the First National Bank this morning." Mitchell noted everything on his tablet. "Do you have a photo of him?" "No, but he has a distinct feature. He wears an old medallion with my family's crest." The detective raised an eyebrow but maintained his professionalism. "I see. Any other details?" Catherine hesitated for a moment. "He said the last name came from his father, and he mentioned a grandmother." "Understood. I'll conduct a discreet search. I'll contact you as soon as I have information." After Mitchell left, Catherine went up to her mother's room. Ms. Catherine Williams, now 90 years old, spent most of her time in her bedroom, surrounded by nurses and memories of a glorious past. "Mother?" Catherine knocked softly on the door. "Come in, dear." Catherine was seated in her favorite armchair, gazing out the window at the garden. Her white hair was perfectly styled, and she wore one of the many silk dresses she insisted on wearing daily. "How was your day?" she asked without turning from the window. Catherine sat on the edge of the bed. "Mother, I need to ask you something about Richard." The name made Catherine visibly flinch. She closed her eyes for a moment. "We've spoken about this, Catherine. Your brother made his choice 40 years ago." "I know, but nothing. Richard chose that girl over his family. He chose to dishonor our name. There's nothing more to say." Catherine knew that tone well. It was the same one her mother used whenever the subject came up. But now there was something new, something that could change everything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. What if I told you I found someone wearing our medallion? His medallion? Catherine turned sharply, her eyes wide. Impossible. Richard left alone. She couldn't have been... Couldn't have been what, Mother? But Catherine had already shut down again, turning her gaze back to the window. Leave the past where it belongs, Catherine. Some doors are better left closed. Catherine left the room more confused than when she'd entered. What was her mother hiding? And who was the girl Richard had chosen? 3 days passed before Mitchell called. Catherine was in a meeting when her phone buzzed. Seeing the detective's name, she dismissed everyone from the room. "I found the boy," Mitchell said bluntly. "He lives on the east side in Eastwood Heights, stays with a woman named Bernice Jones, 78 years old. She claims to be his grandmother." "Grandmother? Are you sure?" "I did a preliminary check. Miss Jones worked in this house 40 years ago. She was a maid for the Williams family." Catherine felt the air leave her lungs. Bernice. The name sounded vaguely familiar, like a distant echo from the past. "Go on," she managed to say. "According to neighbors, she's raised the boy since he was a baby. His mother showed up 10 years ago very sick, left the child and never came back. Died shortly after. And the father? No one knows. Ms. Jones won't talk about it. But there's something interesting." Mitchell paused. "I found out Bernice had a daughter named Mary Grace. She also worked as a maid in this house, but only briefly. That was about 40 years ago. The puzzle pieces were falling into place in a chilling way. Catherine vaguely remembered a young maid, pretty and quiet, who had worked at the mansion for a few months before suddenly disappearing. "Send me the address. I'm going there." "Ms. Williams, I don't think that's wise." "Send the address, Mitchell." An hour later, Catherine was in her car, crossing the city toward the east side. The contrast between the neighborhoods was striking. The mansions and luxurious buildings gave way to modest homes, potholed streets, and small businesses. Eastwood Heights was a humble but well-kept neighborhood. The houses, though simple, were tidy. Catherine stopped in front of a yellow house with a small front garden. She took a deep breath before knocking on the door. Ethan himself answered. When he saw her, his eyes widened, and he tried to shut the door, but Catherine was quicker, holding it open. "Wait, I didn't come to cause any trouble. I just want to talk. You tried to take my medal. I'm sorry. I was nervous. That medal means a lot to me." A voice came from inside the house. "Ethan, who is it?" An elderly black woman with grey hair and a posture bent with age appeared behind the boy. When she saw Catherine, her face went pale. "It can't be," Bernice murmured. "You know me." Bernice leaned against the doorframe as if her legs might give out. "Miss Catherine Williams. After all these years, can we talk?" Bernice hesitated, looking from Catherine to Ethan. "Grandma, who is she?" the boy asked. "Come in," Bernice finally said. "Ethan, go play outside for a bit." "But Grandma..." "Go on, sweetheart. Grandma needs to talk to our guest." The house was simple, but impeccably clean. The furniture was old, but well cared for. Family photos in frames lined the walls. Catherine sat on the sofa Bernice gestured to. "Would you like some coffee?" "No, thank you. You know why I'm here. Bernice sank heavily into the armchair across from her. The medal. It's his, isn't it? It belonged to Richard. Bernice's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Richard was a good man, different from the rest of his family, no offense. He and your daughter, Mary Grace, my only child. Bernice wiped away a tear. They fell in love. It was beautiful to see, but I knew it wouldn't last. A maid and the boss's son? I tried to warn my daughter, but love is blind. Catherine's chest tightened. Her suspicions were being confirmed one by one. What happened? Your father found out. It was terrible. He threatened my daughter, said he'd ruin our lives if she didn't disappear. He offered us money to leave and never come back. And Richard? He fought. Oh, how he fought. He said he'd marry Mary, that he didn't care what his family thought. But then... Bernice paused, lost in painful memories. Then your father did something unforgivable. He told Richard that Mary had taken the money and left, that she'd had an abortion before going. All lies. Catherine felt sick. She knew well the cruelty her father was capable of when it came to protecting the family name. Richard was destroyed. He left the same day, just a note saying he couldn't live in that house, with that family anymore. We never saw him again. And Mary? She was 3 months pregnant when we left. I raised my daughter alone with what little we had. She never got over losing Richard. She tried to move on, but her heart stayed in that mansion. And Ethan. 10 years ago, Mary showed up at my door. She was very sick, advanced tuberculosis. She had Ethan in her arms, just a few months old. She begged me to take care of him, said his father could never know he existed. She died 2 weeks later. Tears streamed down Catherine's face. 40 years of lies, lives ruined by pride and prejudice. Ethan is Richard's grandson. Bernice nodded. He's your great-nephew, Miss Catherine. Your own flesh and blood. But why didn't Mary ever try to find Richard? She did years later. She found out he'd married, had another family in Boston. She didn't want to ruin his life all over again. And when Ethan was born, the boy's father was married. Another mistake, another heartbreak. My daughter paid dearly for trying to forget her brother. Catherine stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Ethan was playing with an old ball, kicking it against the wall. He was just a child, innocent of all the drama surrounding his existence. What do you intend to do? Asked Bernice, apprehensive. I don't know. I need to think. Please, don't take the boy from me. I'm all he has. It may not be much, but he's raised with love. Catherine turned to face Bernice. Are you sure about Richard, about him being in Boston? That's what Mary Grace found out 15 years ago. But I don't know if he's still there. Catherine took a card from her purse and handed it to Bernice. My number. I'll need time to process all this, but I promise I won't do anything to hurt Ethan. As she left, Catherine stopped in front of the boy. Ethan. He looked at her suspiciously. Take good care of that medal. It's very special. I know. My grandma said it was my grandpa's. One day I'll find him. Catherine swallowed her tears and hurried away. In the car, she called Mitchell again. I need you to find someone. Richard Williams must be around 65, last known location, Boston, 15 years ago. In the days that followed, Catherine couldn't think of anything else. Ethan's face haunted her, just like Bernice's revelations. How could her father have been capable of such cruelty? And her mother, what did she really know? Determined to confront Catherine again, Catherine waited for the right moment. It was a Sunday afternoon when her mother seemed most lucid and relaxed. Mom, I found Mary Grace's son. Catherine dropped the teacup she was holding. The liquid spilled onto the Persian rug, but neither of them moved. What did you say? The maid Richard loved, she had his son. My father lied about the abortion. No, that's impossible. He's my great-nephew, Mom, your great-grandson. He's alive, living on the east side with his grandmother. Catherine began to cry, a convulsive sob Catherine had never seen before. Between gasps, the words spilled out. I knew. God forgive me, I knew she was pregnant. I saw the nausea, the way she'd touch her belly. But your father, he said it was for the best, that Richard deserved someone better. You let Dad do that? I was weak, Catherine. Raised to obey, to keep up appearances. The family name above all. But the price was too high. I lost my son. Richard never came back. He's alive, Mum, in Boston. Catherine gripped Catherine's arm with surprising strength. Alive? Richard is alive? I'm trying to locate him, but first, we need to decide what to do about Ethan. Ethan? The boy, Mary's son, your great-grandson. Catherine fell silent for long minutes. When she spoke again, there was a determination in her voice Catherine hadn't heard in decades. Bring the boy here. I want to meet him. Mom, it's not that simple. Catherine, I've spent 40 years paying for my mistakes. I won't die without trying to make them right. Bring the boy. The following week, Catherine returned to Eastwood Heights. This time, she was met with less suspicion. She explained her mother's wish to Bernice. Miss Catherine wants to meet Ethan. Bernice seemed skeptical. She's remorseful, truly remorseful. Remorse doesn't erase the past, Miss Catherine. I know, but it can help build a better future for Ethan. Bernice looked at her grandson, who was doing homework at the kitchen table. What do you think, Ethan? Want to meet your great-grandma? The boy looked up, curious. Great-grandma? The lady from the mansion. That's right. Is she really rich? Ethan, Bernice scolded. Just curious, Grandma. Catherine smiled. Yes, she's rich, but she's also old and lonely. Ethan thought for a moment. If Grandma comes with me, I'll go. On the scheduled day, Catherine picked them up personally. Ethan was wearing his best clothes, his hair carefully combed by Bernice. During the drive, he gazed in wonder out the car window. Wow, what big houses! When they arrived at the mansion, the boy was speechless. It's a castle. It's just a big house, said Catherine, but she couldn't help smiling at his excitement. Catherine was waiting for them in the living room. She had insisted on coming downstairs despite the nurses' protests. She looked as elegant as ever, but Catherine noticed the tremor in her hands. When Ethan walked in, Catherine pressed a hand to her chest. It was like seeing Richard as a child again, despite the difference in skin color. The same expressive eyes, the same determined chin. Good afternoon, Mom, said Ethan with the manners Bernice had taught him. Good afternoon, my boy. Catherine could barely speak. You can call me Catherine. My grandma said you're my great-grandma, is that true? Catherine looked at Bernice, who gave a slight nod. It's true, Ethan. I am your great-grandma. Then why did you never visit me? The innocent question cut like a knife. Catherine swallowed hard. Because I was foolish, but I'd like to change that if you'll let me. Ethan stepped closer, studying Catherine's face carefully. You have sad eyes. My grandma used to too, but it got better when I grew up a little and could help her. Catherine could no longer hold back her tears. You're a very special boy, Ethan. My grandma always says that. She says I'm special because I have two families, the one that raised me and the one I've yet to meet. During the visit, Ethan explored the house with endless curiosity. He asked about the paintings, the furniture, the old photographs. When he saw the portrait of a young Richard, he stopped. Who's that? Your grandfather, said Catherine. Richard. He was handsome. Where is he now? We're looking for him. When you find him, will you tell him about me? Of course. Bernice watched everything in silence, protective as a lioness. But little by little, she relaxed as she saw Catherine and Catherine treat Ethan with genuine affection. When it was time to leave, Catherine held the boy's hand. Ethan, I'd like you to visit me again. Can we be friends? Maybe. Do you have a video game? Catherine laughed, something she hadn't done in a long time. No, but I can buy one. Cool. Then I'll come for sure. After they left, Catherine turned to Catherine. Find Richard, please, before it's too late. 2 weeks later, Mitchell had news. Richard had been located in Boston, where he ran a small auto repair shop. He was married and had 2 grown children. He completely changed his life, Mitchell explained. Lives simply, no extravagance. According to records, he never tried to contact the family. Catherine decided to go herself. She couldn't just call after 40 years. She took a flight the next morning, her heart tight with anxiety. The shop was in a middle-class neighborhood. A simple sign read, Williams Auto Repair Shop. Catherine stopped across the street, watching. Then she saw him. Richard was older, of course. His hair was grey, his face marked by time, but it was unmistakably him. He wore grease-stained overalls and was chatting animatedly with a customer. Catherine crossed the street on shaky legs. "Richard?" He turned, and for a moment time seemed to stop. Recognition was instant, followed by a mix of emotions: surprise, pain, maybe a hint of joy. "Catherine?" His voice was hoarse. "How? What are you doing here? We need to talk, please." Richard looked around, clearly uncomfortable. "Not here. There's a diner on the corner." Sitting face to face, 2 untouched coffees between them, the siblings stared at each other after 4 decades. "You look well," Catherine finally said. "I'm glad. I rebuilt my life. Far from all that." "Richard, there's something you need to know. If you came to convince me to go back, you're wasting your time." "It's not that. It's about Mary Grace." The name made Richard pale. He gripped his cup tightly. "Don't say that name. She didn't have an abortion, Richard. Father lied." "What?" "Mary had the baby. A girl. Your daughter." Richard stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. "No, that's impossible." "It's true. Father paid them to disappear and told you Mary had an abortion. She raised the girl alone." Where are they?" Catherine took a deep breath. "Mary passed away 10 years ago, but her daughter, she had a son. You have a grandson, Richard." Richard had to steady himself against the table. Tears streamed freely down his face. "A grandson?" "Ethan. He's 10. He's an amazing boy." 10 years. 10 years, and I didn't know." Catherine told him everything. About meeting Ethan, about Bernice, about the visits to the mansion. Richard listened in silence, processing decades of lies and revelations. "I need to see him," he finally said. "Yes, but there's more. Your daughter, her name was Mary Elizabeth. Bernice said she tried to find you 15 years ago." "Mary Elizabeth," Richard repeated the name like a prayer. 15 years ago, I lived at a different address. She must not have found me. She found out you had gotten married. She didn't want to disrupt your life." "Disrupt? She was my daughter. I had the right to know." "I know. I'm sorry, Richard, for everything." Richard wiped his face with his hands. "My wife, my children, they don't know about Mary, about any of this. Will you tell them?" "I'll have to. I can't hide something like this. A grandson. He has the medal. Your medal." Richard instinctively touched his chest, where the medal had once been. "Mary kept it and passed it on to her son. He's very proud of it." Richard was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was firm. "I'm coming with you. I need to meet my grandson." The trip back to New York City was tense. Richard was visibly nervous, alternating between silence and questions about Ethan. "What's he like, beyond looks?" "Smart, curious, polite. Bernice did a wonderful job raising him." "Bernice? I remember her. A good woman. Mary was lucky to have a mother like that. She still lives in the same house where she raised Mary. Now she's raising Ethan." "East Side. Eastwood Heights." Richard nodded, lost in thought. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Catherine had called Bernice to warn her about the visit. When they arrived, the older woman was waiting at the door, Ethan by her side. The meeting between grandfather and grandson was filled with emotion. Richard couldn't stop staring at the boy, searching for traces of Mary, of himself. "So you're my grandpa?" Ethan asked, direct as always. "I am. I'm sorry I wasn't around before." "It's okay. My grandma said you didn't know about me." "That's true. But now that I do, I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me." Ethan looked at Bernice, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like that. Do you know how to play soccer?" Richard laughed through his tears. "I do. I played a lot when I was young." "Cool. Can you teach me some moves?" During the visit, Bernice told Richard about Mary Elizabeth, how she had been a devoted mother despite the hardships, how she had worked hard to support Ethan in his first months. "She talked about you," Bernice said. "Kept a photo she'd taken secretly at the mansion." "I looked for her," Richard said, his voice breaking. "In the early years, I searched all over New York City, but it was like she'd vanished. We changed our names. Your father had threatened to sue my daughter for theft if she ever showed up again. He made up a story that she'd stolen jewelry. Mary was so frightened that we changed our documents. The revelation was yet another blow." Richard buried his face in his hands. "My father, how could he?" "Forgiveness sets you free, Mr. Richard. It took me years to learn that." Catherine watched everything in silence. Seeing her brother after so long, learning the truth about the past was both painful and liberating. "Richard, Mom wants to see you," she finally said. He lifted his head, surprised. "After everything?" "She's changed. Regretful. She's been visiting Ethan regularly." "I don't know if I can—" "Grandpa," Ethan interrupted. "Great-Grandma Catherine is cool. She's learning to play video games with me." Despite the tension, everyone laughed. "It's true." "She's bad at it, but she's trying." Richard ruffled his grandson's hair. "So she really has changed. The mother I knew would never touch a video game." In the following days, the news spread through the family. The family lawyer, Mr. Harrison, appeared at the mansion, concerned. "Ms. Catherine, we need to discuss the legal implications of all this." "What implications?" "The boy, if he's recognized as an heir—" "He's my great-nephew, Harrison, my brother's grandson." "I understand. But legally nothing. Ethan is a Williams." "Are you sure it would be prudent to do a DNA test?" Catherine considered it, not out of doubt, but to protect Ethan from future questions. "I'll talk to Richard and Bernice." The suggestion of the test caused tension. Bernice was offended, feeling her word was doubted. Richard was torn. It was Ethan who resolved the situation. "If taking this test will stop the arguments, I'll do it. I'm not afraid because I know who I am." The boy's wisdom surprised everyone. The test was done, and while they waited for the results, the family tried to adjust to the new reality. Richard had told his wife, Linda, everything. She was shocked but ultimately understanding. 40 years of lies, she said. "You deserve to know the truth. I'm sorry I never told you about Mary before. You told me you'd loved before. I just didn't know the full story." Richard's children, Paul and Amy, both adults, had mixed reactions. Paul was curious to meet his cousin. Amy was more reserved, worried about the changes in the family. The meeting between Richard and Catherine was the hardest. Catherine arranged everything at the mansion, ensuring it would be a controlled environment. When Richard entered the room, Catherine stood up, trembling. Mother and son faced each other across a 40-year chasm. "My son," Catherine whispered. "Mom, can you forgive me?" "I don't know. It's been so many years, so much pain." "I know. I carry this guilt every day. But seeing Ethan, it's like having a second chance." "He's not a second chance, Mom. He's a person with his own life. We can't use him to fix the past." "You're right, I'm sorry. I just wanted so badly to make things right." Slowly, with regular meetings, the wounds began to heal. Ethan was the catalyst for this healing. With his natural joy and ability to love without reservation, the DNA results confirmed what everyone already knew. Ethan was a Williams, but it brought new complications. "We have cousins who will question this," Harrison warned. "The inheritance—" "Let them question," Catherine said firmly. "Ethan is my great-grandson. It's time this family learned what truly matters." Indeed, some distant relatives began to murmur. They spoke of the boy from the East Side who had appeared out of nowhere. Catherine faced them all with determination. "Ethan didn't appear out of nowhere. We were the ones who were blind. And he doesn't live in the East Side. He lives in a humble but dignified home, with a grandmother who's worth more than many people with fancy last names." Ethan's integration into the family was gradual. He still lived with Bernice. No one even suggested separating them. But now he had an extended family. He visited Catherine twice a week. The great-grandma had actually bought a video game and was making an effort to learn, which amused Ethan immensely. "Great-grandma, you have to jump now. I'm trying. These controls are too complicated." It just takes practice, you'll get it. With Richard, he developed a special bond. His grandpa would pick him up on Saturdays to play soccer, fix things at the auto repair shop, or just talk. Grandpa, why did you leave the family? Because sometimes, Ethan, you have to choose between what's right and what's easy. I chose what I thought was right. And do you regret it? I regret not fighting harder, for believing lies. But I don't regret loving your grandma. Catherine also grew closer to her great-nephew. She discovered in him a sharp mind and a thirst for knowledge that delighted her. Aunt Catherine, how does a bank work? Why do you want to know? Because you work with that. And I want to understand what my family does. She began teaching him about finances, investments, and the empire the family had built. Ethan absorbed everything with impressive ease. But it was during Ethan's 11th birthday party that something extraordinary happened. Catherine had organized a celebration at the mansion, the first time both sides of the family, by blood and by upbringing, would fully gather. Bernice had resisted at first. I don't want my grandson dazzled by luxury. It's not about luxury, Bernice. It's about family. On the day of the party, the mansion was decorated with a soccer theme, Ethan's passion. Present were Catherine, Richard with his family, Bernice, and some of Ethan's friends from the neighborhood. The mix was unusual. Boys from the east side running through the mansion gardens, Catherine chatting with humble mothers, Richard playing soccer with everyone. Then an unexpected visitor arrived. Mr. Harrison appeared with a grim expression and documents in hand. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a problem. Catherine pulled him into the office. What is it now? Your cousin, Robert Williams, is legally contesting Ethan's recognition. He claims fraud, exploitation. Harrison seemed genuinely troubled. And there's worse. He has documents supposedly proving Mary Grace stole family jewelry before leaving. That's a lie. My father made that up. I know. But the documents exist. Your father must have forged them back then to protect himself. Catherine felt her blood boil. After everything, there were still people willing to perpetuate the lies of the past. What does Robert want? For Ethan to be cut off from the family, for any inheritance rights to be denied. Over my dead body. Catherine returned to the party, determined not to let anything ruin Ethan's day. But Richard noticed her expression and confronted her. What happened? She told him everything. Richard's face turned into a mask of fury. It's still not over. 40 years weren't enough. I'll fight, Richard. Ethan won't suffer for what our father did. You're not fighting alone. I'm with you. I ran once. I won't run again. The party continued, with Ethan oblivious to the drama. He was radiant, surrounded by everyone he loved. At one point, he asked to give a speech. I want to thank everyone who came. A year ago, I only had my grandma Bernice. Now I have a huge family. I have Grandpa Richard, great-grandma Catherine, Aunt Catherine, cousins. He paused, looking around. I know some people think it's strange. A poor kid with a rich family. But you know what I've learned? Family isn't about money. It's about love. And I have so much love here. Not a single adult had dry eyes. Even Linda, who had been the most reserved, was moved. Catherine rose with difficulty. I want to speak too. Her voice was weak but firm. I've made many mistakes in life. I let pride and prejudice tear my family apart. I lost a son for 40 years. I lost a granddaughter I never knew, but God gave me a second chance through this boy. And I swear, here in front of everyone, that I won't waste it. Ethan is my great-grandson, my blood, my heir, and anyone who has a problem with that will have to face me. Catherine's public declaration was a turning point. Robert and other relatives who had been whispering realized they wouldn't have the matriarch's support. In the weeks that followed, Catherine crafted an impeccable legal strategy. She discovered Robert had his own secrets, embezzlement from the family business years ago, which Catherine had covered up to keep up appearances. You have two options, Catherine told Robert during a tense meeting. Drop the accusations against Ethan, or I expose your crimes. And unlike my mother, I have no problem airing dirty laundry in public. Robert backed down, but not without a warning. You're destroying the family legacy. No, Catherine replied. We're finally building a real family. The healing process continued. Richard grew closer to Ethan. trying to make up for lost years. One Sunday he took his grandson fishing, something he used to do with his own father before the rift. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think my mom would be happy to see us together?" Richard had to wipe away tears before answering. "I'm sure she would, Ethan. She must be very happy. I dream about her sometimes. I don't remember her face, but I know it's her. She's always smiling." "Does your Grandma Bernice have any photos?" "Just one, but it's faded. Grandma cries when she looks at it, so I don't ask to see it." Richard made a mental note to have the photo restored. Catherine's health began to decline. 90 years were taking their toll. But she seemed at peace, something Catherine hadn't seen in decades. "I'm ready," Catherine said one afternoon. "I finally did something right." "Don't talk like that, Mom. It's the truth. Ethan gave me something I didn't deserve, forgiveness. Through him, I got Richard back. I watched you become the strong woman you are. I can leave in peace." "Mom?" "Take care of him, Catherine. Take care of Ethan. Make sure he has every opportunity, but never let him lose his essence. That kindness, that purity. It's what saved our family." Ethan noticed Catherine's worsening condition and visited more often. He spent entire afternoons with her, reading stories, showing her his schoolwork, or simply keeping her company. "Great-grandma, are you sad?" "No, my dear. I'm at peace." "Then why are you crying?" "Tears of joy. For having you here." During one visit, Ethan made an unusual request. "Great-grandma, can I call you great-grandma?" "Of course, I'd love that. And can I bring my friends from the neighborhood to see the house? They don't believe I have a great-grandma with a mansion." Catherine laughed. "Bring as many as you want. This house needs young joy." Ethan's friend's visit was unforgettable. 5 boys from the east side explored every corner of the mansion, swam in the pool, played in the garden. Catherine watched from her chair, a permanent smile on her face. "Doesn't the noise bother you?" asked Bernice, who had accompanied the group. "On the contrary, this house has been silent too long. It's good to hear life in it again." The relationship between Bernice and Catherine also grew. The two women, separated by class but united by their love for Ethan, developed mutual respect. "You did well with him," Catherine said. "I did what any grandmother would do, loved and raised him. Not every grandmother would have had your strength. Raising a child alone at your age. Love gives you strength you never knew you had." One day, Ethan came home from school with an assignment to make a family tree. His teacher had asked for photos and family stories. "Grandma Bernice, how am I supposed to do this? My family's complicated." "It's not complicated, it's special," Bernice said. With everyone's help, Ethan set up his family tree. On one side, Bernice and the few photos he had of Mary Elizabeth. On the other, the extensive Williams family. In the middle, he himself bridging 2 worlds. The presentation at school was a success. Ethan told his story with pride, hiding nothing. He spoke about the grandmother who raised him, the grandfather he discovered existed, and the great-grandmother he learned to love late in life. "My family is different," he concluded, "but it's mine, and I love every one of them." The teacher was so moved that she called Catherine. "Your nephew is extraordinary. The maturity, the way he sees the world. He had good role models," Catherine replied, thinking of Bernice. Richard, inspired by Ethan's courage, decided to do something he'd put off for years. He went to the cemetery where Mary Elizabeth was buried. Bernice had given him the address. The grave was simple, just a cross with her name and dates. Richard knelt on the damp earth. "Forgive me," he whispered. "Forgive me for not fighting harder, for believing the lies, for not being there. But I promise to take care of your son, our grandson. He's incredible, Mary, you'd be so proud." He left flowers and the restored photo he'd managed to find, a picture of a young Mary, smiling, taken in the mansion gardens 40 years ago. When he told Ethan about the visit, the boy asked to go too. They all went, Richard, Ethan, Bernice, and Catherine. At the cemetery, Ethan placed his hand on the headstone. "Hi, Mum. It's me, Ethan. I wanted to say everything's okay. Grandma Bernice took good care of me, and now I've found Grandpa Richard and the rest of the family. You don't need to worry, I'm loved." It was November when Catherine took a drastic turn for the worse. The doctors were called, but there wasn't much they could do. Age and a weary heart had taken their final toll. "Call Ethan," she asked. The boy rushed from school, still in his uniform. He entered the room slowly, frightened by the machines and his great-grandmother's frailty. "Come here, my dear," Catherine called weakly. Ethan approached and took her hand. "Great-grandma, are you going to get better?" "I'm going to a better place, but first, I need to tell you something. You saved this family, Ethan. Your love, your purity, reminded us of what we'd forgotten. Thank you." "I'm the one who should thank you, Great-grandma, for accepting me. There's something I want you to have." Catherine pointed to the dresser. "Top drawer." Catherine opened it and found a velvet box. Inside was Catherine's medal. "Now you have two," Catherine said, "one from your grandfather and one from me, to always remind you that you're loved by both sides." Ethan held the two medals, moved. "I'll take good care of them." "I know you will. And Ethan, keep being who you are. Don't let money, the family name, or anything change your heart." "I promise, Great-grandma." Catherine closed her eyes, a smile on her lips. She passed that night, peacefully as she'd wished. The funeral brought together all of New York City's high society, but the most touching moment was when Ethan approached the casket and placed a drawing he'd made, him and Catherine playing video games with the words "Best Great-grandma ever." After the funeral, the reading of the will brought surprises. Catherine had changed everything months before. Most of the fortune was divided between Catherine and Richard, as expected, but there was a special clause. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. A substantial educational fund was established in Ethan's name, ensuring not only his education, but also scholarships for underprivileged children in Eastwood Heights. "She thought of everything," Catherine murmured. There was also a letter for Ethan to be opened when he turned 18. And another provision, a generous sum for Bernice with a note. "For the woman who did what I didn't have the courage to do, love unconditionally." Bernice cried when she found out. "I don't need her money." "It's not about needing," said Catherine. "It's about recognition, about justice." Life moved on. Ethan continued living with Bernice, but now with a routine that included the whole family. Sunday lunches at the mansion, afternoons at the auto shop with Richard, finance lessons with Catherine. Robert and other dissatisfied relatives made one last attempt, questioning Catherine's mental capacity when she changed the will. But Catherine was prepared. "I have videos, witnesses, medical reports. My mother was more lucid in her final months than she had been in decades. Try anything, and you'll regret it." The threat worked. The dissenters backed down, accepting the family's new reality. Ethan grew up balanced between two worlds. At the public school in his neighborhood, he was still the same Ethan, playing ball in the streets, helping Bernice with groceries, keeping his childhood friends. But he also learned about the business world, visited museums with Catherine, and traveled with Richard. The duality, instead of confusing him, made him stronger. "Aunt Catherine, why don't some people in the family like me?" he asked one day. "Because they're afraid, Ethan." "Afraid of what?" "Of change, of admitting they were wrong. You represent everything they tried to hide." "But I didn't do anything wrong." "Exactly, and that's what bothers them most. Your very existence proves their prejudice was unfounded." At 12, Ethan made a decision that surprised everyone. During a family dinner, he announced, "I want to start a community project in the neighborhood. Use part of the money Great-grandma left to build a community center." "You're too young for that," said Paul, Ethan's cousin. "Too young to want to help?" Ethan shot back. "I saw how Great-grandma changed at the end of her life. I want to start early." Richard smiled proudly. "Full support. Let's make it happen." The project became reality. The Mary Elizabeth Community Center opened a year later, offering tutoring, sports activities, and vocational courses. Ethan made sure the whole family was involved. Catherine handled the legal and financial side. Richard offered mechanics classes. Even Amy and Paul, initially resistant, ended up pitching in. "You were right," Amy told Ethan at the inauguration. "Family is about more than blood." Bernice watched it all with pride. Her advanced age sometimes worried her. Who would take care of Ethan when she was gone? But seeing the network of love around her grandson, she felt at ease. "I did my part," she told Catherine in a private conversation. "Now it's up to you." "Bernice, you still have many years ahead." "I hope so. But I need to know my boy will be okay." "He will be. He's a Williams in name, but he has the heart of the Joneses. The best possible combination." The community center was a success. Kids in the neighborhood now had opportunities they'd never dreamed of, and Ethan was always there, helping, teaching, setting an example. "Why do you do this?" one of the boys asked. "Because someone did it for me," Ethan replied simply. "My grandma took me in, loved me. I want to pass that on." The transformation in the Williams family was visible. At business meetings, Catherine now advocated for social projects. Richard expanded the auto shop, hiring local youth. The family, once known only for wealth, earned respect for their actions. "Ethan taught us something important," Catherine said in an interview. "That a real legacy isn't what we accumulate, but what we share." At 15, Ethan was a balanced, intelligent, and compassionate young man. He stayed grounded despite his opportunities. Bernice, now 83, watched with satisfaction the man he was becoming. "Your mother would be proud," she said on his birthday. "You think so?" "I'm sure of it. You have the best of her and your grandfather. And a little of me too, I hope." "A lot of you, Grandma. The strength, the dignity, the unconditional love." On a Sunday afternoon, the whole family was gathered at the mansion. Ethan was playing soccer with his cousins in the garden. Bernice and Catherine were chatting on the porch. Richard was helping with the barbecue. It was a scene that would have been impossible to imagine years ago. Two families, two worlds, united by a boy who refused to choose between them. "You know," said Bernice, "sometimes I think about how it all happened. The meeting on the street, the medal. Fate, suggested Catherine, or maybe divine justice." 40 years later, the truth found its way. Ethan scored a goal and ran to hug both his grandmothers. On his chest, the two medals swayed, symbols of a story of pain turned into love, of prejudice overcome by acceptance. "See? I'm as good as my grandpa." "Better," said Richard, stepping closer. "You have something it took me 40 years to learn." "What? That true family is built with love, not with a last name." The sun set over New York City, painting the sky gold. In the Williams mansion, for the first time in decades, true happiness reigned. Robert, the cousin who had caused so much trouble, unexpectedly showed up at a family gathering. Everyone tensed, but he raised his hands in peace. "I came to apologize," he said, visibly uncomfortable. "I was wrong. I saw the work at the community center, what you're doing." He looked at Ethan. "You're more of a Williams than many of us, in the truest sense of what our family should stand for." Ethan stepped forward and extended his hand. "I accept your apology, Cousin Robert. Everyone deserves a second chance." The gesture broke the last resistance. Robert shook the young man's hand, moved. "You really are special, kid." "I'm not special. I just had special people teaching me." The reconciliation with Robert opened doors. Other family members who had kept their distance began to reach out. The community center received more and more support. During Ethan's middle school graduation, the school auditorium was packed. Bernice sat in the place of honor, surrounded by the entire Williams family. Ethan was chosen to give the class speech. On stage, he looked at the audience, his neighborhood friends, his blood family, his heart family. "They say we can choose our friends, but not our family." "I disagree," he began. "Family is who we choose to love, who chooses to love us. I learned that from my grandma Bernice, who chose me when I was just a baby, from my grandpa Richard, who chose me when he found out I existed, from my Aunt Catherine, who chose to fight for me, from my great-grandma Catherine, who chose to change for me." He paused, emotional. "Today I look at you and see my true wealth. It's not in the last name I carry or the money my family has. It's in the love we share, the bridges we've built, the lives we've touched. Thank you for teaching me that we don't have to choose between where we come from and where we're going. We can honor both." The applause was deafening. Bernice wiped away tears of pride. Catherine and Richard embraced. In the sky, it was as if Mary Elizabeth and Catherine were smiling, seeing the fruit of so much suffering turned into love. After the graduation, there was a party at the community center. The whole neighborhood joined, mingling with New York City's elite. It was Ethan's vision coming true, a world where social barriers dissolved before what truly mattered. "We did it," Catherine said to Richard. "No, he did it. We just learned to follow his lead." Bernice, tired but happy, watched Ethan move through the party, equally at ease with his neighborhood friends and wealthy relatives. "Mr. Richard," she called. "Please, Bernice, just Richard." "Richard, I want to thank you for accepting the boy, for being there. I'm the one who should thank you, for taking care of him, for preserving Mary's memory, for raising this incredible young man. You know, I always imagined what it would be like when he found his father's family. I was afraid of losing him. You'll never lose him. Ethan has a unique ability to expand his heart to fit everyone he loves. I learned that from him." Ethan approached, bringing juice for Bernice. "Grandma, are you tired? Should I ask Uncle Charles to take us home?" "Not yet. I want to enjoy a little longer." He sat beside her, and soon Richard and Catherine joined them. 4 generations together, watching the celebration, each lost in thoughts about the journey that had brought them there. "Family," murmured Ethan. "The best word there is," agreed Catherine. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities. Ethan had been accepted into one of the best schools in New York City, with a full merit scholarship. He would continue living with Bernice, keeping his roots while exploring new horizons. The community center was expanding, plans for a library, a computer lab, more classrooms. The dream of transforming the neighborhood through education was taking shape. "You know what amazes me the most," said Amy, Ethan's cousin, during a family lunch. "How you managed to be so normal. With everything that happened, all the history, you could be bitter or arrogant or whatever." Ethan laughed. "Normal? I think my life is far from normal. You know what I mean, you're balanced, grounded. I had good examples, and I learned early that life is about choices. I can choose to be bitter about what I didn't have, or grateful for what I do have. I choose gratitude." Linda, Richard's wife, had grown especially close to Ethan. Cautious at first, she now treated him like a true grandson. "You've transformed this family," she once told him. "I think we've all transformed each other. Too wise for your age. Grandma Bernice says it's because I had to grow up fast, but I don't see it as a bad thing. It made me who I am." Visits to Mary Elizabeth's grave became a family tradition. Every month, they all went to bring flowers, share updates, and keep her memory alive. "Mom," Ethan would say to the headstone, "the center is growing. We're helping 200 kids now. Some remind me of myself years ago, lost, needing a chance. We're giving them that chance." Richard always got emotional during these moments. The weight of absence, of lost years, would never fully disappear. But Ethan was the balm for that wound. At a Williams Company board meeting, Catherine proposed something revolutionary. "I want to create an inclusive hiring policy, at least 30% of positions for residents of underserved communities." There was initial resistance. "This is madness," said one board member. "We'll lose out on qualifications. We'll gain diversity, different perspectives, and we'll train these people. Ethan taught me that talent is everywhere. It just needs opportunity." The proposal passed by a narrow margin, but it was enough. Another barrier had fallen. Ethan watched with interest. At 16, he occasionally sat in on meetings as an observer, learning about the corporate world. "I'm not sure this is what I want for myself," he confessed to Catherine after a particularly tense meeting. "You don't have to decide now. Whatever you choose, you'll have our support." "Sometimes I think about being a teacher or a social worker, something that lets me help people directly. That would be a waste of your business talent. Or maybe using that talent differently. Social entrepreneurship, perhaps." Catherine smiled. The boy, no, the young man, still surprised her. Bernice's health began to decline at 85. Nothing serious, but age was taking its toll. Ethan became even more attentive, balancing school, the community center, and caring for his grandmother. "You need to live your life," Bernice said one morning. I am living. Taking care of you is part of my life. I'm a burden. You're my grandma, my savior. You'll never be a burden. Catherine hired nurses to help, but Ethan insisted on being present whenever possible. His devotion moved everyone who witnessed it. It was during this time that Ethan met Julie, a volunteer at the community center. The daughter of teachers, she shared his passion for education and social justice. "Your family is interesting," she remarked after meeting everyone at dinner. "That's one way to put it," Ethan laughed. "How do you handle it all? Two such different worlds." "I don't see them as two worlds. I see them as one, my own. I'm a product of both, and both shaped me." Their relationship blossomed naturally. Julie fit into the complex family dynamic, earning acceptance from both Bernice and the Williamses. "She's a good girl," Bernice approved, "down to earth. And head in the clouds when she needs to be," Ethan added. "Just like me." At 18, the time came to open Catherine's letter. The family gathered in the mansion's living room, Ethan at the center, holding the envelope with slightly trembling hands. "My dear Ethan," he read aloud, "if you're reading this, it means you've grown into the man I only glimpsed. I hope you've kept your kindness, your ability to bridge worlds, your gentle strength. I leave you not just material possessions, but a greater legacy, the responsibility to keep healing our family. You began this process at 10, unknowingly. Now continue it with purpose. Use your privilege to open doors. Use your humble roots to never forget the reality most face. Let your heart guide your decisions. I ask forgiveness on behalf of generations of Williamses for past mistakes. And I thank you in their name for the redemption you've brought. Be happy, my great-grandson. Be free. Be yourself. The best version of all of us. With eternal love, your great-grandma Catherine." No dry eyes remained in the room. Ethan carefully folded the letter, tucking it beside the medals he always carried. "She understood," he said simply. In the end, she understood everything. College brought new challenges. Ethan chose business administration with a focus on non-profits, blending the family's corporate knowledge with his social passion. Bernice, now needing constant care, moved into an adapted room in the mansion. It was a hard decision, leaving the home where she'd raised her daughter and grandson, but necessary. "It's temporary," she insisted. Of course, everyone agreed, knowing it likely wasn't. Yet Bernice thrived in her new surroundings. Surrounded by care, with Ethan nearby daily, she found a peace she deserved after years of struggle. "You know," she told Catherine one afternoon, "I never imagined ending my days in a mansion. You deserve every comfort. It's not about deserving, it's about life's twists. The maid who was cast out, the daughter who left pregnant and helpless. And now here I am. The woman who saved my family," Catherine corrected, "who preserved the best of us in Ethan." The community center became a national model. Delegations came to study the project, which now included job training, free legal aid, and even a basic health clinic. Ethan, even in college, stayed involved. Julie became the educational coordinator, implementing innovative methods. "We're changing lives," she said after a tech class graduation. "One at a time," Ethan agreed, "like my grandma changed mine." Robert, the once troubled cousin, had become one of the center's biggest supporters. His transformation was further proof of the Ethan effect. "You taught me something important," he told Ethan during a board meeting, "that protecting the family name isn't about hiding truths, but about building a legacy we can be proud of." Ethan's college graduation was an event. Bernice, at 89 years old, insisted on attending, even though she needed a wheelchair. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," she said, smoothing the new dress Catherine had insisted on buying. In his valedictorian speech, Ethan moved everyone once again. 4 years ago, I walked in here, carrying 2 medals and the weight of a story of separation and reunion. Today I leave with the same medals, but now they stand for unity and purpose. I've learned that management isn't just about numbers and strategies. It's about people. It's about building bridges where there were chasms. It's about using privilege to create opportunities. He looked directly at his family in the audience. "My grandma Bernice taught me dignity and simplicity. My grandpa Richard, the courage to start over. My aunt Catherine, the strength to fight for what's right. My great-grandma Catherine, that redemption is possible at any age. I carry them all with me into the next chapter. The marriage proposal to Julie came naturally, in the garden of the community centre, surrounded by the children they served. "It feels right," she said, emotional. "Where it all began for us." "Where it all continues," Ethan corrected. "Will you build this future with me?" Her yes came with tears and cheers from the children. The wedding was a celebration of unity in every sense. Held in the community centre's hall, decorated with elegant simplicity, it brought together Ethan's two worlds in perfect harmony. Bernice, escorted to the altar by Ethan before the bride, radiated pride. Richard officiated the ceremony, having gotten certified as a celebrant just for the occasion. "Love," he said in his speech, "has the power to heal, to unite, to transform. I've seen it happen in our family through Ethan. Now I see it multiply through this union." Catherine was the matron of honor, moved to see the great nephew she'd once found by chance on the street become a man of integrity, ready to start his own family. The honeymoon was in their own city. Ethan and Julie spent a week visiting social projects, studying models to expand the community center. "Romantic in our own way," Julie laughed. "I can't imagine anything better," Ethan agreed. Their first child came 2 years later, Thomas Williams Jones, uniting the surnames, the history, the future. Bernice, now 91, held her great-grandson with trembling but steady hands. "Life goes on," she murmured. "Generation after generation, life finds its way." "He'll have everything I had," Ethan promised. "Love, family, opportunities, and values." "He'll have more," Bernice said. "He'll have a better world, one you're helping to build." The growth of Ethan's social ventures was impressive. The community center model had been replicated in 5 neighborhoods. The family business, under Catherine's influence, and now Ethan as a junior director, became a benchmark for social responsibility. "We've proven it's possible," Ethan said in a business lecture. "Profit with purpose, success with meaning. They're not mutually exclusive." Richard, nearing 70, saw in his grandson the fulfillment of dreams he himself had never pursued. "You did what I didn't have the courage to do," he said once. "You challenged the system from within, changed it. I had advantages you didn't. I had support. I had role models. I had you." Bernice's health declined quickly after Thomas's birth. It was as if she'd waited to see the next generation before allowing herself to go. "I've fulfilled my mission," she told Ethan one quiet afternoon. "Don't talk like that, Grandma. It's not sadness, my boy. It's peace. I've watched you grow, watched you find your family, watched you marry, watched you have a son. What more could a grandmother want?" "Forever," Ethan said, his voice choked. "I'll always be here. In you, in every child you help, in every life you touch. I learned from your great-grandma Catherine that we leave when our work is done. Mine is." Bernice passed in her sleep a week later, peaceful as she had lived her last years. The funeral brought together hundreds of people, from the neighborhood, the Williams family, the community center. Ethan spoke at the cemetery, his voice steady despite the tears. Bernice Jones was a mother without bearing children, rich without money, noble without a title. She taught me that love has no conditions, that family has no single definition, that dignity has no price. Everything I am, I owe to her. Everything I do will be in her honor. Catherine approached after the burial. She had a full life. Yes, Ethan agreed, and she made sure many others had the chance to have one too. Life went on, just as Bernice had said. Thomas grew up surrounded by love, knowing his story, proud of his complex roots. The community center was renamed the Bernice Jones and Mary Elizabeth Educational Center, a tribute to the 2 women who, each in their own way, had made everything possible. Ethan, at 30, became the youngest CEO in the history of Williams Enterprises, but he kept his feet firmly planted in 2 worlds. "How do you manage it?" a reporter asked. "Running a business empire and maintaining social work?" "I don't see them as separate. The success of one feeds the other. Profits fund social projects. Social projects bring purpose and innovation to the business. It's a virtuous circle." Richard and Catherine, now elderly but active, watched with pride as the legacy continued. The Williams family, once synonymous only with wealth and tradition, now represented transformation and inclusion. "We did it," Catherine said at a family dinner. "Ethan did it," Richard corrected. "We did it," Ethan insisted. "Each playing our part. Grandma Bernice planted, you watered, I'm just tending the garden." Julie, pregnant with their second child, smiled, and the garden keeps growing. "For Isabella Bernice," Ethan announced, revealing the chosen name. Uniting generations, honoring the past, promising the future. The Williams Mansion, once a symbol of separation and pride, now housed an event center for the non-profit sector. Family gatherings took place in the same hall where workshops for social entrepreneurs were held. "Your great-grandma would be proud," Catherine said, watching a group of young people from the East Side learning about business management in what was once the ballroom. "I think in the end she understood," Ethan replied, "that mansions empty of love are worthless, but full of purpose they can change the world." The second community center in Eastwood Heights opened on what would have been Catherine's 100th birthday. A plaque at the entrance read, "Every prejudice overcome is an open door to love. Catherine Williams." Would she have said that? Julie asked. "Maybe not in those words," Ethan admitted. "But that's how she lived in the end. That's what matters." Years passed. Thomas and Isabella grew up understanding their complex heritage, privileged but aware, wealthy but generous, Williamses but above all, human. "Dad," Thomas asked at 10, the same age Ethan had been when it all began, "why is our family different?" Ethan smiled, touching the 2 medals he still carried. "Because one day, a street kid dared to say his name. Because a maid dared to love beyond her class. Because a grandmother dared to raise her grandson alone. Because people dared to change. Our family is different because we chose love over pride, unity over separation, truth over lies. And is that good? It's the best we can be." Catherine, now 90 years old but still sharp and active, was organizing her memories into a book. The story of a name would tell the entire saga, with the profits going to the community centers. "It's important to remember," she said, "to learn, so the mistakes aren't repeated." Richard, retired but ever present, spent his afternoons at the auto shop, now a technical school bearing his name, teaching young people from the neighborhood. "Every tightened bolt," he'd say, "is a step toward a better future." One Sunday morning, the whole family visited the graves. Catherine, Mary Elizabeth, now Bernice. 3 women, 3 stories, 1 legacy. Ethan spoke softly. "We did it. What you dreamed of, we made real. The family is united. The children have opportunities, love won." A gentle breeze rustled the trees, as if the 3 were answering. Thomas tugged his father's hand. "Dad, when I grow up, I want to help people too." "Then you're already growing up, right?" Back at the mansion turned cultural center, the family ate lunch together, 3 generations around the table, talking, laughing, planning for the future. "You know," said Isabella, surprisingly wise for her 8 years, "we're really rich." "Because of the money," teased Julie. "No, because we have each other, because we help people, because our table is big and there's always room for one more." Ethan exchanged an emotional glance with Catherine and Richard. The child's wisdom echoed truths that had taken decades to learn. The legacy lived on. Not just the name Williams, but what it had become. A symbol of change, of how transformation is possible, of how love overcomes any barrier. In the community center's office, a framed photo showed the moment of their first meeting. Catherine elegant and irritated, Ethan small and determined, the medal shining between them. Below it, a simple plaque read, "Where it all began. An unlikely encounter, a shared last name, a future transformed." Ethan ran his fingers over the photo, smiling. How many lives had changed since that day? How many more would? "Mr. Williams," a young voice called, "the class is ready for your talk." "I'm coming." He stood, adjusted the 2 medals on his chest, and went to share his story, as he did every week with new groups planting seeds of hope and change. Outside at the center's entrance, a new sign had been installed: Bernice Jones and Mary Elizabeth Educational Center, where the impossible becomes possible through love, education, and opportunity. And it was true. Every day, children like Ethan once was walked through those doors and left transformed. The cycle continued, love multiplied, the legacy endured. On the dining table of the old mansion, now the center's meeting room, the two original medals were framed and hung on the wall, not as relics of a divided past, but as reminders that every story of pain can become a story of love. And so the street boy who dared to speak his name had not just found his family, he had redefined what family means. Forever. The end. And you, dear listener, what did you think of Ethan's journey? Do you believe love can overcome any barrier? Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you're following us from. Your opinion means so much to us.